Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Welcome to Too Much with Denise Love Hewett. We just got merch if you peep my hat. So you can buy tees, you can buy caps, you can join us in the Too Much Army to wear it loud and proud. That we should be extremely proud of the fullness of who we are. And today we are talking about the artist's journey. We are talking about music. We are talking about the path to finding your authentic voice as an artist. And so I'm very grateful today to have Mikal Angeles in the house. So Mikal Angeles is an R&B artist from LA, blending emotional storytelling with lush, genre-bending soundscapes. 5 years after his colorful debut album Toys, Mikal returns with Magic Hour, a sparkling new world of beautiful ballads and dance heavy anthems. Leaving behind the fire spitting persona and bars, Mikal coins the phrase no rapping on this album as a bold PSA marking a new era for this rising star. Influenced by icons like Frank Ocean, Brandy, Prince, Mikal combines elements of 80s glam rock, dance, and R&B soul to deliver what he calls his magnum opus. His music is deeply introspective, weaving themes of love, transformation, and self-discovery into every note, creating an immersive experience that resonates far beyond the surface. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Shout out to everyone on the platform of Too Much. And I'm just glad to be here today. It's a beautiful day in sunny California, and this should be fun.
It will be fun. So you say in your bio, you talk about this past version of you that used to rap. Tell us about what precipitated the change from app to R&B.
Yes, I rap for like, I would say 21 years since I was in high school. I released my first mixtape when I was about 15. I just always was really into the English language, how it goes, AP English courses, and just really was fascinated with the way that words had these multiple meanings and metaphors and double entendres. I was really fascinated with that. So I just started to turn my poetry, obviously, into raps and songs and hooks. And then it evolved into an album. So that's where Toys came from. So I released that kind of like right after COVID or in the same interim, like 2020. It was dope. It was necessary for that time. It was very colorful. I'm also a painter. So I'm just attracted to color and using different textures and things like that. So I think in my rap persona, I was able to tap into these different personalities and just be really like animated and stuff. It was fun while it lasted. Me stopping the rapping wasn't planned. It's something that kind of just happened as I got older. I'm 35. I started to get more into self inquiry, diving into what is this that we're doing here on this planet and who are we actually? And not just on a surface level, but really wanting to find out something that to maintain a sense of like joy and happiness in life that wasn't so fleeting, because as artists it's fun when you're on stage and you're doing the things, music videos and photo shoots and stuff like that, the glamorous things, but it's when you're off stage and when the applause stops and when you really have to be okay with who you are when it's not, you know, lights camera action.
So was there something specific that made you start to do self-inquiry? There was an event that happened? Is it just the political climate? What was the impetus to start asking those bigger questions about life?
For sure. I think we all just start very basic. My grandfather was a preacher, so I always had that kind of Christian, like basic understanding that there was something bigger. As you grow and things happen, it's usually some kind of catalyst, like some kind of dramatic experience, like losing a job or losing my car, which is all things that happen at one time. But just starting to notice a pattern that it wasn't like I was doing all the things. I was reading all the scriptures. I was quote unquote what I thought was a good person, but trauma or chaos was still happening around me. So I wanted to know, it felt like it wasn't necessarily like a punishment, which kind of like the Christian doctrine taught you, like, oh, God was striking you for something that a wrongdoing that you did. It felt like it was more an invitation to that maybe it was not just about doing good things or doing the social norm or what it was like to to be a good person, but it was something deeper there for sure. So I would say definitely just losing like all the things that we as a culture say that you need to be secure. So losing security, losing your apartment, or losing those things that really make you feel like safe. Relationships as well. That was a really big one for me. At one point felt like I was like a hopeless romantic. So I had these relationships that I would very easily dive fully into and felt like I lost myself in the process of those things. So I think it was really like those kind of things, relationships, losing quote unquote the love that I thought that it took losing that to look deeper into finding a love that was deeper, a love that was more our natural god-given. It was something that didn't have to be built or like cultivated or curated, and more something that it had to be natural, it had to be truthful. And for me, my definition of truth is something that is, it always is. It doesn't like come and go. So I guess that was it. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does, it does, and I'm curious as you began to investigate these questions, what modalities were you looking to? What became your spiritual practice?
I know there was a time where it started off as one of the first derivatives from like the typical religious path was like the law of attraction, which I think most people are familiar with at this point. That was like the beginning for me, just manifestation and meditation and kind of like cultivating this life that you want through your vibration and raising your vibration and thinking positive thoughts, Abraham Hicks and The Secret, things like that. So that's where it started. I feel like that was the beginning. I wasn't attracted to achieving more things. I didn't want more cars. And I understood that anything that anyone wanted, whether it was a boyfriend, a nice new car, the satisfaction that you would get from gaining those objects was temporary. You know what I mean? It's like uh this saying like, oh, you should buy me this new car for it'll make me happy for the afternoon. It took me getting all those things and quote unquote manifesting things that I thought that I wanted to make me happy to realize that it wasn't that. There's this saying like neti neti, like not this, not this. So it's a process of elimination that started to happen when it's like, okay, it's not this, I got this, and it's not that. It's still where it's brought me to in this point in my life was finding a teacher that spoke to my heart, which is someone that I follow. He's in India. His name is Muji, and I follow his satsangs online. And it had the gatherings had the respect level of like going to church, but it was more open. It was more of a emptiness and a quietness. It wasn't like what I was used to, where it's like the hooping and hollering, the kind of theatrics of the emotional of listening to a preacher. It was more like a coming home and a sense of silence that was being encouraged in that space. And I just started to listen. Like I said, it was in that moment where I had lost all these things. So I was like kind of at home. I didn't have a job. So I just started to one of his videos came on YouTube and it started to play video after video. I was listening to hours and hours, but I wasn't really understanding so much. They were using these spiritual words like consciousness and awareness and the supreme self and the absolute. I didn't really understand what was being said, but it's like on another level, I was understanding without the use of the language. In other words, what was being said wasn't as important as like, kind of like this melting, I would say, that was happening.
It forced you to do the inward thing, which it feels like everyone says it ad nauseum, but happiness really is an inner journey. You can't rely on any of these external things to make you happy because none of those things are permanent. The only thing you can rely on is the ability to control yourself, your mind, your reactions to things. And so that silence, uncomfortable in the beginning, right? Like it's not comfortable to sit in that silence in the beginning,
Very uncomfortable.
but it forces you to look inside and say, okay, what now? And that stillness is actually where we find our rebirth, and that's where we regenerate, and that's where we sow our resilience. And so, as uncomfortable as it is, it's probably the most valuable thing you can do in periods of great questioning, right? Like, you lost everything. What is next? And the answer is you probably didn't know.
The unknown, right? It's like it is a death. It does feel like a death. It's almost like it's a surrendering. It feels like you said, you don't know. You don't know what's next because everything that you thought you knew, or everything that you thought that you needed to feel safe, is gone. And where you normally will kick into survival mode, now you're doing something counterproductive, which is just to stop. First of all, it's just like we're so used to just doing damage control and like, okay, I need to do this before the, you know what I mean? And it's like you're running around. But I just started to feel like it was easy, easier than I was taught that it had to be. It wasn't so sweaty. It didn't have to be, I have this problem, I need to wrestle it to the ground and kill it. It felt like more of something that I needed to get out of the way of my own self so that I could see what was already there, the abundance that was already available to me, I would say. So, yeah, it's been life changing.
Yeah, it's what happens. It's like you're feeling your way through it versus doing your way through it.
Exactly. They call us human beings, right? It's not human doings. We've been on the planet long enough to know that if I pick this box up and I put enough energy into it, I can move it to this side of the room. So we put a lot of value in action, but action without, I like to be inspired to action now rather than motivated to it. You see those videos and like people are like yelling at people like, you need to do this. And they're motivated. And maybe that works for some people. I know there's millions of teachers and not everyone has the same temperament. But as far as me, where I am, it needed to be without all the extras. It needed to just, I needed something very like clear and very like direct. And I feel like the teaching and the pointings that I'm following now have, wow, it's the only thing that I found that has really stayed with me and really become my experience, because we learn many many things, but it's like if it's not really put into, you can listen to someone sound like they know what they're saying, or what they're talking about, and they sound confident, but it's like until it becomes your own experience, it's just words on a page.
How long did you sit in that place of unknowing? How long did it take you to figure out your next step?
I would say it wasn't a long, to the mind it may have seemed like a long time, but in a very short period of time I started to see the evidence of and the fruit of what I was doing. What I was doing without knowing I was doing it. I started to see how things were moving in synchronicity without me trying to manipulate life. In other words, in a short period of time, I would say into a short couple of weeks, find a timing and a kind of a harmony in life. So it felt less like I was living a life and more so like I was coming to the understanding that I was life itself. That's what it feels like. Instead of feeling like a separate small thing that is at the mercy of huge forces that I don't understand, I started, and I still don't understand everything, but it's almost like a surrender and not needing to understand so much, which is what the person was trying to do. It's like the person has so many things that needs to be in place for it to function properly. Like, okay, I need you to have nice people. I need you to, I don't like this. I don't like strawberry, whatever. Where it's like once I let go of like the need for life to look a certain way, in other words, I was knowing less, but ironically or paradoxically, all this wisdom or all this knowledge of awareness was made available to me by approaching it from a sense of like openness rather than, I don't know, it's really hard to put into words, you know.
Well, I think you're a quick study because I sat in my space of not knowing what's next for a couple years. And now if I look back, I can see there was like small incremental steps that were leading me where I am now. But at the time, I think clearly struggle a little more with control than you do. I still struggle with the idea of the not knowing and the surrendering. I'm much better at it today than I was, 4 years ago. But the one thing I'm connecting with is there was always evidence of something greater at work. There was always evidence of something telling me that I'm gonna be okay. When am I gonna be okay? How am I gonna be okay? I don't know. But I saw plenty of signs. And I think that idea that we're connected to something bigger, this idea of interdependence, we talk about this a lot on this podcast, is a really key part of I'm having deja vu. This is crazy. I had this dream like a few months ago.
That's insane.
No, crazy. But interdependence, that we are connected to something bigger than ourselves, is really the point of our human lives. And so the fact that you were feeling that quite early is quite profound. And then your willingness to relax into it, I admire, because certainly mine has been a lot more of a struggle.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I would amount that to I feel that we all come from the same source, but we're different in expression. So everybody has like different temperaments. Some people are more busy and action minded, and some, I'm an artist, so I always lean more into just following just what feels better. And I think grew my respect for God or the higher power or whatever you want to call it is like when things happen like really dramatic and I felt like I was like saved at the last minute. Like I felt like there was like a meteor coming for like my head. And then like at the last minute, I was like snatched from that, being demolished like that. When things like that happen where it's like there's no mistake, like that couldn't have been from my own. It was just too close. It was just too close. It just looked it like it was going to be all over. And I felt like I was saved by grace. When things like that happen, that in multiple times, not just one time, like it continues to happen, it really strengthened, it really became easier for me to let go because I felt like that was God telling me no. Like, just know it. So it's like once life spanks you, I would say, once life spanks you, people talk about being God fearing. I guess it's just easier for me to be like, oh, well, then that's just not for me. Even though I want to hold on, I've seen that when I hold on, I can get dragged. You know what I'm saying? There's just a design to it all that is beyond your own desires. And the good thing about it is that what's really yours is bigger than that. It's more than our minds can imagine, so we like to just grab for the highest that we can think about. But if we know that we are a part of this infinite ness, then it just comes. That's when my trust grew. It was just a trust that began to grow, and that's the beautiful thing. Once again, it's not like I have to wait. I had to wait for long before I saw the fruit. Was like, oh yeah, I made the right decision. Like, why not stick with this current that is carrying me? It's like you're sitting on the lap of God itself, and you want nothing but what that vision is for you. And of course, we don't get it right every time, of course, because the ego, right? That's a word we haven't mentioned yet. It's still a part of all of us. It's still that kind of duality, that kind of the one who wants to be seen, the one who wants to be admired, or whatever that is that we have created, the concept of us. It's still here. And I'm not going to act like just because my awareness has grown that guy is completely out of the car. It just becomes more subtle. It just becomes more of like a record that's playing the back room rather than like just like, right. You know what I mean?
Yep. And it's also, we're still human, right? So for me, I know I can't unsee what I've seen. And I also know that there's been plenty of times things didn't work out, that something else better came in. So now when I'm up against rejection or something doesn't work, I'm usually like, the universe dreams bigger than me. Who am I to say, like, maybe this thing is falling through because something bigger is around the corner? And who am I to determine that? And if it's really meant for me, it'll happen. And sometimes there's obstacles. Recently, I was working with a brand partner on something, and there was like 8,000 technical things we had to troubleshoot to get it to work. And I was frustrated. Then I was like, maybe this isn't it. And then it turns out we figured it out. It involved some hustle and work on my end. It wasn't just handed to me. But I was also like, I'm not going to get too upset about it if it doesn't work out, just because there could be something bigger and better. And if it's meant to happen, it's inevitable and it's going to happen, and I will figure it out. And that's something that I've seen enough times that I can believe, but it's really hard to believe that initially. So I think it's so fantastic that you were able to see a very quick evidence that this was the right choice. Did you find at the end of this period of stillness, some inquiry, some reevaluation, that you had just ultimately outgrown the person that you were before?
Oh yeah, many times. Many, I call them little mini deaths or mini 40 days and 40 nights where it's just, you mentioned the word rejection. That's something that, because of issues with my family, abandonment issues or whatever from the past, that's still something that kind of like is in my personality pool or whatever the case may be. So that can get activated, I've noticed. But once I realized that it really comes down to the identity where we place ourselves. You know what I mean? Anything can arise. One of the things that my spiritual master says is that if 100 people come and hug you, which is like equivalent to like 100 thoughts, right? You can't keep them from hugging you, but you don't have to hug them back. You can't keep someone from knocking on your door. It's not illegal for someone to knock on your door, but you don't have to invite them in for tea. Just little things like that have, and just becoming more aware. Basically, the one of the biggest things that just changed everything for me is just realizing that we are not our mind and we are not our thoughts. And I think so many people still to this day don't know the difference between their mind and their thoughts and their actual selves. And we go through these exercises where we're able to be more aware of the thoughts that are coming, but it's a relationship, right? So if you're not like engaged with them, you realize how phenomenal they are and how they come and go. And it's the same thing with our personality. It's the same thing with our tendencies, our need for validation. It's like something that I'm able to now, because I've sat with myself and bear my own silence. There's a gap now between thoughts, opposed to someone who you can watch and you can literally see every thought on their face. Like they're just like a slave to their mind. They're just like wherever the wind blows. But because I've sat with myself and I've been okay with feelings of boredom or feelings of needing to fill a space with something, I've just sat with that. And that's something that seems like a lot of us are afraid of, that feeling, and trying to run away from that. But once I was okay with that, there was just this gap. There was just this space between when thoughts would come up and invite me to take a shape. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't like you or whatever the case may be. And it's not the first time you know what I mean? Whatever. Once I stopped not only not listening, but just watch it. Not watching it with interest, like you're watching a movie, but like watch it with detachment. You know what I mean? And you see it change shape and then it just goes. It just goes. And once that happened enough time, I was just like, this is something that's just automatic. It's not, and I know that it's not just happening to me on a personal level. I feel like this is the collective consciousness of all mankind. That is just like the psychological side effect of coming from these beings that we are into these bodies and having an experience which is unique. You know what I mean? It is unique. But what I became more interested in is just something that was just the same, something that I could depend on, something that was always here in a world where everything is just always changing. If everything is just chaos around you and it's just moving around you and you're also moving around, there will be no reference for what's moving and what's still. But I feel like when I started to realize that there was something here that was always still, like right now I'm talking, but my being isn't, it's like I have this saying like talking but not talking, or like crying but not crying. That's another thing where it's like even in the emotional states where you find yourself just undone and you have this breakdown, allowing like tears to come. But like even in that moment where you go in the mirror and you see yourself crying and you like start crying more because you start to feel sorry for yourself, it's like this action of crying, but then there's the self-loathing that's attached with it and the reaction to it that's just like, oh, I feel so bad for myself. But I started to become aware of even that level of emotion in the midst of it. So in other words, I was able to almost detach and see that I was crying, but there was something that wasn't crying, that was right there in the same space. I can go from crying to like, it sounds like you're gonna be like, oh, he's crazy, but go from crying to like full laughter and like minutes later, because it just, once I really was able to see it, it just seemed so playful. And you know what I mean?
Right. And so when you saw that, was it a recognition of basically, like, when you were rapping, that was a lot of, we'll call it, just for the sake of this conversation, your animal maybe your animal mind, not your conscious mind. Was the rapping in your music, was that more of a manifestation of that mind? And then once you went through this journey, you were able to zoom out and be like, "Actually, that's not necessarily the truth or essence of what I want to express as an artist." But was that part of what happened for you?
Well, I don't want to make it sound as if it's all negative. It brought me to where I am. I would say that as far as the subject matter,
No, no, for the record, I love rap music. I love hip hop. I play it all the time when I DJ. There's no shade, no tea on rap music. I'm just talking about, like, the core and truth of who you are as an artist, and that's really what I'm talking about. We are not shading on the hip hop business.
yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah.
We love it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I didn't take it that way. I think, like I said, I thought if you would have asked me, I said I would still be rapping forever. You know what I'm saying? I still got bars and stuff. But I think the main thing that became different and it felt untruthful for me was just the braggadocious tone in which I was rapping. I thought if I'm able to listen to my music, my older projects, and I'm like, oh, that's a dope line, or that was creative how I put that together. But at the core, the sentiment was, I'm better than you. I'm better than you, which is kind of like the prerequisite for being a rapper. It's unheard of to be like, yo, I'm the second best. You can't be, you just can't. It's built on the confidence. They're not singing necessarily. So it really comes down to what you're saying and how you use your voice. So, of course, it was the storytelling that I was attracted to, which I was always great at telling stories and double meanings and really showing someone how good you are with your mind. And there it is again. I felt like I pushed the mind to the highest level when it came to like concepts, which this, as I say it to you now, and but just pushing the mind to the most wittiest level, what pushing to the edge of like what words can do and concepts, and it just, and of course the whole braggadocious thing. So yes, it, this whole journey with my music, from the Toys album to this album Magic Hour where we are now, which I still feel like I have that level of flashiness that Toys had as far as like the aesthetic and the album artwork and everything like that. But overall, it feels like the energy is moving to this quieting down of sports, where it's like it started off as very aggressive and very like in your face. I felt like I had something to prove. I also felt like as a black man, like I wanted to be a part of this accepted space. That was my way to impress my brothers and stuff like that in the game, because I'm not really like into sports. I don't watch like football and stuff like that. So these are conversations that I could be a part of and be respected. You know what I mean? And I was respected for how dope I was on the mic when it came to rapping. But like I said, it just felt like after that, there was just that I was quieting down. I was shrinking. The concept of a me as this superior being, whatever, was shrinking, even if it wasn't for entertainment, who I really was just becoming less and less. I was starting to see less and less of me, or being able to identify myself less and less as a thing, or like a certain kind of thing. You know what I mean? I believe that we come into these bodies, and when we're younger, we don't really believe that we're the body. We don't even know how to move it as much and stuff. And then through the repetition of a name, we start to really identify. And then you're just like, okay, I'm a man. You know what I mean? And then you realize that you're a part of a culture. And it's like, okay, I'm a black man. Or it's like, oh, I'm a whatever, however you identify, it just gets tighter and tighter. And then you find yourself in the midst of all these concepts and you just feel claustrophobic. And I don't think that it's a mistake. I think that we all are destined to go through this falling asleep of sorts, where we just shrink into this very tight space. And I think that sparks, and it's an opportunity, it's an invitation. Like, 'cause everyone is not going to go on that journey to come out of that. Some people are going to stay just in that conditioning for at least the rest of this particular life. But if you are wise enough, and through life is constantly poking at us to look deeper, and that's when I started to realize that, yeah, it just kind of happened. It just kind of happened. I'm really, really, really proud with it in this album.
No, I love that. We had an artist, Latasha, she's been on the podcast. She's a hip hop house artist. And it's funny because for her, so much of her journey has been about allowing herself to be more braggadocious. And so I think it's so funny when you look at everyone's different experiences of, that was a space that maybe just was more culturally accepted as a man versus a woman. And so it's cool to see people come to their artistry and approach it and learn in different ways. That's what's so great about these conversations is we realize everyone's having their own beautiful creative healing journey. Through this album, what did you want to communicate?
Just wanted to communicate the self. I just wanted to communicate the self, which to me means just that higher being inside. I'm saying inside of all of us, but it's no location. It's not inside, it's not outside, it's everywhere. It's everything. It's everything that we are. And I wanted to communicate that I was in a space that I was at peace and I had peace of mind and I didn't have anything to prove. I love that the music still sounds fun and energetic. At the same time, I didn't want to make like an album where I sound like I was preaching. So I think it's just so amazing how, and that's why I feel like it wasn't from my own accord. It's really whatever is meant to be communicated. The same with this conversation. Thank you again for having me. But I didn't come with any plan of what to say because I really wanted whatever was meant to be said to just be that. I feel like sometimes you can like over prepare so much for a meeting with someone. And I feel like when you get to that meeting, whatever your preparation was is like stale by that point because they're at a different space. It's kind of like you have to meet the energy where it is. And whenever we come to these little small awakenings or whatever the case, or these enlightenments, these illuminations on our path, it's natural to want to share that with like your loved ones or your friends. Like, hey, look what I found. I found the celestial gem. You don't have to struggle like this anymore. Come with me, let me show you. But through actual experience, I've realized that truth is not like, oh, I have this cluster of concepts, let me share it with you. It has to be a space. It They have to have the space to hear it. In other words, I can't just hit them with a truth stick, and if they're not, they can energetically block me. There's plenty of conversations I've wanted to have with my family, but I can still tell, and that's wisdom. Being able to know what to share, how much to share. Are they available for what you have to say? Is it time for them? So that's also like that discernment and that balance and knowing that all comes from that same space of just like letting it do, and the same thing with this album, letting it say what needs to be said without me pushing too hard to nail a point to the ground.
Yeah. No, it's very nicely weaves like softer R&B songs with more club tracks. It's a very fun journey. I enjoyed it. And you sample so many songs.
Yeah, I got a couple of samples in here.
Okay, so I couldn't figure it out. What is the sample in My Burning Heart?
My Burning Heart is sampled New Kids on the Block, and it's the song called The Right Stuff. You got the right stuff.
I knew it. As a DJ, I was like, I know it. I know this sampling something. I just like couldn't pinpoint what the song was, and I loved it. Such a fun vibe.
Thank you so much. The whole album kinda has this '80s, like, '90s nostalgia to it, and I feel like that a lot of that is missing in today's popular music. So I grew up on Stevie Wonder, Lauryn Hill, New Edition, just all those feel-good music, and yeah, I just heard that record one day, and I was just like, it's so catchy, like, I was like, I gotta do this."
Yeah. No, it's a little Michael Jackson adjacent, which I like because it feels like there's a bit of a void sonically.
No, for sure. Michael Jackson was definitely one of the probably the top inspirations for this particular album. I'm actually I just yesterday had dance rehearsal because I'm shooting the music. My first visual from the project is gonna be the Wiz. And to me, the Wiz on the album is probably the most Michael Jackson-esque sounding record. Dancing is not it's not really in my wheelhouse, like, I'm Black, so I naturally have rhythm, but, like, that level of dancing, like, actually learning choreography, it's very new to me, so, like, today, my body just feels like I just got hit by a Mack truck, like, I'm completely out of sorts, but it's a challenge for me, it's very important for each album to challenge myself to do something new,
That's the only way that I feel like I'm creating and pushing music forward. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to learn how to dance and I really chose that record because I wanted to, like you said, it's smooth record, it's softer tracks I could have chosen for the visual, but I really wanted people to feel the energy that was behind this album and that we can still dance. But that record, if you really listen to the lyrics, it's so the opposite of a dance, like, it's a dance record, like, sonically, but the lyrics are basically, like, what we're talking about, what we've been talking about today. My favorite line from that song is on the bridge, it says, "You cannot be a seeker your whole life. When seeking becomes finding, you're alive." That's what the whole song is. It's called The Wiz, so it's like it's talking about the journey, right? This journey to the Wiz, who it's a metaphor in the song for basically God, you know. So I'm like, come on with me. I know you want to meet the Wiz. But I love that line because so many times on this spiritual path, we get locked in this mode of being a seeker. And one of the things my master points out to me is that you've been seeking a long time. What have you found? You know what I mean? It's almost like this we get into it's like we've been conditioned for so long that we get into the secret space and it's okay, at least I'm looking for the truth. I'm on the way. I'm getting closer. I'm doing this and my life is starting to make sense. I have some spiritual friends and it's starting to I'm starting to get a balance, but it's almost like what he keeps pointing to is that there's an alreadiness about our freedom. There's an alreadiness about who we are. It's like it's a natural thing. And it's so counterintuitive because we've been taught that we have to become somebody. We have to become
We're just unlearning to get back to the core essence of who we were when we were born. That's what the spiritual journey is. Like we were born pure and perfect and clear, and babies are the most crystal clear, right? I want food. I want to go to the bathroom. I want to sleep. There is no pretense about what is being asked. And we're getting to a place where we're learning to be more and more true through the process of unlearning. Like that's really what we're doing here.
exactly. And it's just about acknowledging it and confirming it every day in these situations. And even when it feels tough to confirm it, like, I don't feel like yourself right now, but it's like, well, that's another thing too, like taking the conditions off of it. Because when you first start this, you have like this almost feel like you're walking on heaven feeling, where it's like you're just floating, everything is happening the way that you want it to. You think of something and it just manifests, and it's just like, but then that goes too, and you think that you've lost it, but then there it is again. It's always leveling up, like zooming in and seeing, is it true? Like asking you, that's what self-inquiry is. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, I don't feel as energetic as I did yesterday. So I lost the self. Doesn't even make sense. Like when you really say it out loud, it's like, how can I lose my own self? I'm here. So I guess once I realized that it wasn't a good feeling, it wasn't even a holy feeling, or you could be, sad, but there could be a full tsunami in your mind, and I'm still able to somehow be at peace. That probably sounds so far-fetched, but until you actually put it into practice, and then usually the tsunami goes shortly after once you confirm that within yourself that you don't need the mind to calm down in order for you to be yourself, because that's what the mind wants to sell you, that idea, and it wants you to go out and do something to get rid of this feeling, like whether that's take a drink or have sex or buy something expensive. It's like, no, I'm just going you're here. This funny image that my master says, the mind knocks on your door and then he just walks in and kicks his feet up here. And it's like, you have to leave. Like, this is my house. You have to go. Like, what are you doing here? He laughed like, no, go fix me some tea. I'm not leaving. It feels like that sometimes, like, it's just so loud, it's just so, like, that what are you gonna do? It's your house, your body, your house, so he said he's not gonna leave, so what are you gonna do? And that was just so powerful for me because it just made me realize that this is the condition of the human mind and experience, and we have to live with it, like, we have to live with it, like, until but the more we confirm that we were before the mind. Like the mind is ancient. The tricks of the mind are ancient since the beginning of time, but there's something timeless about us, meaning the awareness that is aware of the mind, which came after. You know what I mean? So while I'm here on this planet in this physical form, my goal is to just, I know the body is temporary and it's going to, you know, but I want to find that which cannot go before this body does. And just comes from a constant looking, even in every situation that comes. I'm grateful for it because it gives me an opportunity to look closer at the little things in my mind that says that if this is happening, then I'm not that.
Right. This is the work of our lives is self-mastery, and I think it's a lifelong practice. What do you want your audience to feel from this album?
I would say a freedom. I would say a freedom. There's this letter that I wrote inside of the vinyl, and it's like, come with me for a magical hour where we'll dance on the edge of our very existence and we'll cry buckets of tears. And I said, don't forget to dance along the way or something like that. It's just this kind of duality where once you realize what's going on, life stops being so, I'm not saying like it's not serious. It's like, you know how like you watch a soccer game, it's a game, but it's like, it doesn't mean that you don't take it serious. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like it has lost once you lose or you're starting to shed your identity, how you identify with life and everything is so serious, it starts to become very light. There's a lightness to it that even when serious things happen, you just are still in this place of it's okay. You just feel like you've already made your not a it's not a decision. I don't want to make it seem like it's beyond conviction. It's beyond belief. It's just you just have to come to that knowing that this is who we are. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, I want them to feel a lifting of a weight and I want them to feel the freedom that is our birthright. This medium that God has given me, this gift, is just one way of communicating that. But if I wasn't doing music, I feel like my true calling to communicate this truth to people, in whatever way I'm creating. We have that part of us that is our dynamic selves, the one that's creating. I love this image of like the two birds. And this is a good way to, for anyone who's new to self inquiry, just kind of like understanding like what we're talking about. But it's like the image of two birds sitting on a branch on a tree. And there's the bird number one who's like building a nest and going to get food for its young and the active one. And then there's like on the branch above another bird who is not really doing anything but being aware. It's aware of the bird and making the nest, and it's also aware of the wind and everything around it and its own self. And we say in Saxon, can you position yourself in the position of the second bird, basically, where it's like that doesn't mean that the activity stops, people think like, oh, you awaken to the truth and you just, sit on a lump all day and just meditate all day and like nothing happens and you're bumping in the trees and you just a hippie. But it's much more subtle than that. Life just takes on a different beauty and it's almost like your actions become even more accelerated. Like it starts to accelerate. You get more depth because it's not a person that is really behind the action, which it never really was anyway. But we just believe that we were the ones that were like making life happen. But it's like, what was God doing before we showed up?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot more about intentionality and awareness, and oftentimes I'll be in conversation or maybe it's a conflict, and have this ability to, like, observe myself in that moment, so I'm the first bird and the second bird at once, and I think that's really cool to be in this place where you're still doing the doing, right? Because if none of us are just all meditating and nothing, we don't get to peace, we don't get to help people that are vulnerable, like, there's a lot of doing that we have to do in life, but it's that healthy coexistence, that balance of the 2, and we don't wanna over calibrate on either side. It's like we wanna find that little sweet spot.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Where can people find you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram. My name is at Mikal Angeles, Michael with a K, Mikal. Angeles, like the city. Whoa, WHOA. Mikal Angeles Whoa on Instagram. Yeah, you can mostly find me there. And just get at me. Keep up with the music. We'll keep streaming Magic Hour. I hope you guys are enjoying the music, the Wiz, the visual coming soon. And yeah, I hope you guys really like what you hear.
We will add everything in the show notes, of course. And Michael, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story and your artistry with us.
Thank you, Denise. It was a pleasure sitting with you. And I hope we can do it again soon. Thank you for listening. And thank you so much. It was really great.
Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.